All right, so in programming there is a term called dry. Has anybody seen that yet?
No.
And it actually is like that. And it stands for don't repeat yourself. Okay? So anytime in your programming, in your code, that you have written the same code twice, you should look at your code and say, why did I write that again? Right? And can I abstract that? So what does abstraction mean?
To take out and put in something.
Right. So you're going to take it out of one function and put it in another, and maybe out of several places, and make one function that controls it, right? So we created this handle messages function, which will work if you do this. Okay, so now instead of having all of these alerts, that's the same thing over and over, right? We could be using that messages function. So we could say handle or return handle messages, and then this will be error. Okay. And handle messages, and then
Is the second parameter passing through the class?
yeah. So
Would you want it to be danger?
oh yeah, was it danger?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
Good call.
you caught that.
Because they decided to name it so that nobody will ever remember it,
Future
except for
troubleshooting.
Christian.
Because he hasn't had any cheese today.
There you go.
Brain mind is clear.
I think we all should go vegan.
Vegans are just better than everyone else.
Yeah,
He's
vegans
better than all of
go-
them.
go vegan.
No lactose in mine now.
As soon as I go vegan, next time I come in, I'm gonna come in.
I'm not
Okay.
prepared to do.
So that's what this comment is right here, is if either of those are false, then change this, okay? So, so this is us being dry, right?
Mm.
We need to change our inner text, change our class name, and then clear it later. And rather than having all of that here every time, then we create a function and we abstract that out, okay? Same thing down here. And then let's see, checkout is going to do a similar thing. So if we look at checkout and we look at book, they both do a lot of similar things, right?
Yeah.
So they obviously use different values from the form, but they do essentially the same thing. They change the room from one class to another, and they change the text in the room from either unoccupied to a name or a name to unoccupied. So we could have a function called handle room update, or update room update capsule. How's that? Okay. So, and then this could take all of this section here and whatever this is, and we could put it in this update capsule. Okay. And then what we would want is we would need some information here, right? So if we wanted to, we would say remove class, add class, guest name, we would also need that guest, right? So guest element, and then you know what, rather than guest element, we would just need the capsule number, the guest name, and I think that's it. So then in here we could actually do all of this too. Let's see, capsule number, input, we'd want to handle all of this. But we would want to, we'd want the capsule and the guest. So I guess we could do that rather than passing the capsule number. We could pass the capsule and the guest name. Okay? So now we have this function and we can take out all of this here. Well, let's see. And we would call, I'm just going to comment it for a second. And we can call update capsule. Okay, and we pass it this function. So our remove class in this case is badge success. We gotta do remove class badge success. Our add class is badge danger. Our guest is guest. Our capsule is capsule. And then our guest name, in this case, is guest name. Okay? And then we also would need a success message, right? You can just say message and paste that in. Okay, so we'll go up here, change this to message and put that message into the list there. Okay, so now we can get rid of what is 5 lines of code here. And then down here we have the exact same code, right? So we would do the same thing here. And I'm just going to go up here and copy this code and put it here. But these switch. So this is danger, this one's success, and this would be checked out of capsule. And then guest name, what?
Would it be capsule out?
No, because you still used capnum in this, right? So I just need to know the capsule number. Yeah, so this needs to be capsule out. So in that case, I could always just rename capsule out to capsule because it's a local. If you define it within the block, then it only affects the block. Does that make sense? Const and let allow us to have block level variables. If you use the var keyword, then it'll hoist it outside of the function. Okay, so we can just call it capsule. Guest name is going to be unoccupied, and then we can remove all of this code. Okay, and really we could also pass this reset function if we wanted to, but it doesn't really do us any good to pass that one. So the only thing that this actually does is it selects a capsule for us, right, based on different room values, and then it does some validation, and then after the validation happens, then we run this update capsule, which will run for both functions. Okay, so now if we need to change how the so now we would need to change all of this. So this needs to get the remove class, and this needs to get the add class. Guest name was already set. We can put this back in the other one because we're not going to do that here. Right? And we're using all of those. Okay, so now if we run our app here, and we check in, we get our message here, we're booked. Okay, and then if we wanted to check anybody out, then checkout works as well. That seems like it's too fast. Should be 6 seconds. Oh. We need to set this to timeout. I think.
What is the handle messages running against? The MP and then info, where is that from?
So this is just calling itself and then passing no message and changing it back to info. That's what this
Oh.
blue thing is. So on the first one it worked where it was for 6 seconds. And then it should go back. Right? And then it should do that every time, but it was increasing the speed because I think it was clearing the timeout, even though it wasn't, we weren't setting it correctly. So, but yeah. But yeah, anytime, like I said, that you're repeating code like this, then you can look at how can I abstract that out and make it into something more dry. Now, that being said, there are going to be times where you can abstract things and it will make things much harder to follow because you abstracted that thing. And so don't always go straight to, this line of code is in 3 places, so I'm going to pull it out somewhere else, because sometimes that line of code should just stay in those 3 places. So as you get going, you'll get a feel for when does it make sense for me to pull this out and when does it not. And these are the type of things that when you have pull or have a pull request and do a code review, then your code reviewer will most likely be like, oh, this exists somewhere else, or these lines of code are the same, maybe abstract them. So, but yeah, dry is something that we all try and do. And so when you're writing code, try to see ways that you can pull some of that out and make utility functions that can do it for you. Cool? Cool. All right, so for our next sprint, so we extended our sprint, Rich, through today.
Yep.
So we're going to start a new sprint today that will go from 2 weeks from this Thursday. So we'll have a little bit longer sprint again. We're going to finish out the front end development with React section. So we should have gotten through to the debugging one, I think. So this is the first one here for this next sprint. So we'll do debugging, NPM, ECMAScript modules. Those should all be fairly, you guys should remember those. It should be just kind of review-ish. Okay. React is going to be the first thing that is going to be new. Okay. And components in JSX, and then components in JSX the exercise. Sharing state, all of those will be new. HTML forms, you've done some form stuff already. This should be possibly review mostly. There might be some new information in here that will help out. And then it'll teach you how to do those same forms in React. After that, we're gonna build out the project for this, the main project for this sprint, which is a to-do app. Okay. In the to-do app, it wants you to use Bootstrap, and I say, let's not do that. In fact, I will edit it and say use Tailwind CSS. We're gonna use Tailwind, and we'll set that up on Thursday. So I think everybody will probably not be started on the to-do app by Thursday. But if you need to start before then, hit me up and I'll help you get started. But for sure Thursday we will create an app and get Tailwind set in it, and then you can use that for your to-do app. So the to-do app just allows, in this version of it, we're just going to display them, create one on a form, delete it, and be able to edit it. So it's not storing it anywhere, so if you refresh it, all of your to-dos would go away. But that's, it talks about creating an MVP. Has anybody heard of that? Minimum viable product?
What does that mean?
That's what I was gonna ask. Anybody know what it means? Minimum viable product means something that works, that can go to production. It doesn't have to be the cleanest of code. It doesn't have to be,
Doesn't need to be pretty.
yeah, just needs to work.
Barely,
Sounds like it's
barely works.
Yeah, whatever,
If it's anything
Minimum.
more than that.
it's the minimum, yep. Anything more than that is too much. So we're going for minimum, doesn't need to be super pretty. Use some of the Talon CSS, but it doesn't need to be a production ready app. It can just be what it is. So you don't need to add a whole bunch of extra features to it that aren't in this list. As long as it does the things in the list, move on. Okay? And it says here, there's a bunch of stuff that you can use, so you don't even have to use CSS. You could just use an ordered list and have checkboxes on it or whatever, right? So, so that's part one of the to-do app. This sprint has a lot, and that's why I'm stressing MVP for this to-do app. It doesn't need to be anything
Don't
more.
overdo it.
Yeah, because we will then go over promises in async await, which we've done. So this should be a review. Fetch API we've done, this should be a review. And then it'll teach you how to incorporate those into React. Okay? And then we have a second part for the to-do app. And this is hooking it into an API. So the API is already set. These are this is going to use a dummy API essentially. So it's going to give you a bunch of to-do items. It's going to allow you to say you've changed them and deleted them and whatnot. It won't actually do any of that stuff. It'll just say it did it because it's a dummy app. Okay, it's like a placeholder for an actual API. So we're going to use that for this project, and then eventually when we get into Node, we'll build an actual API for this. So hold on to this code when we're done with it, and we'll hook it up then. So again, this one is just hooking that up. You don't have to change the app outside of just hooking it into the API and having it pull the to-dos from there and having it send out your edit and your deletes and that kind of stuff to the API. So you'll change it in that way as opposed to having state hold all of the APIs. So it'll make more sense as you're going through all of these readings. Okay. And then I'll probably also show you how to make local storage work in place of the API so that you can have an app that still stores everything and it's your own to-dos as opposed to like the dummy ones. And then there's an assessment about React, ability to submit that assessment. So it looks like you're building a small little app. I need to look at this one and see. This looks interesting. Never mind. We're going to skip this assessment thing. Yeah. This is assuming that you've already built an API in Java. This is the kind of stuff in the Brightspace that is a little hokey because this is part of like a big Java module. Yeah, so there's a few places where it has said
References.
reference this old one. So I'll take these two off, so don't worry about those two. And then there's a survey where they want to know what you think of React, I think. So that is optional. You can fill it out if you want to. But
All the way to the second part of the exercise by 2 Thursdays from now.
yes. So, and most of this is reading. The only other thing is the components thing. And I'm going to have us all do that, start that today. So for the next 45 minutes, that's what we're gonna work on. So everybody open up your editor. And we're going to create a new project wherever you create your projects. But don't actually create the folder for it yet, just go to the containing one. So wherever you keep your projects at. Okay, does that make sense? So I'm going to go, you need to do this in the terminal. So I'm going to cd to code dev island projects,
To go back, is it just dot dot slash?
or just dot dot, cd dot dot. In fact, because we all have OhmyZish installed, you can just do dot dot enter and it'll do cd dot dot for you. You don't want to do that though, because you're already at the home folder.
Okay.
So now do hyphen enter, and that'll take you back to your home folder. So you want to do cd code dev island. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, dev island. You can hit tab to finish it. Tab. Push up once. Now hit, just once, go bit, push down once. Now hit tab. And then projects. Okay, so we're gonna use an NPM. Everybody here? No?
Just in projects? Just in projects?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Everybody's in their projects folder? Okay, so we're going to use a tool that comes with NPM. Since we all have NPM installed, you all have this installed. It's called NPX.
Getting crazy.
Okay. So it's np execute essentially. It'll run a script file that's associated to whatever or package you reference. So in this case, we're going to do create React app. And we're going to call this one component exercise. Okay. Once you have that, hit enter, and it'll start to do a whole bunch of stuffs. Okay, so this is going to create a React app. It's going to set it all up. It uses a bunch of templates to create all of the folders and all the directories and files and base structure for a React app. It also has a bunch of scripts that are sitting behind a NPM package called React Scripts. So all those scripts are available for you, and then they're all wired up for you. So after it gets done, it'll have installed all the NPM packages that are necessary to run a React app, and it'll have all your scripts available, so you can just run npm start, and your React app will start. So once it's done, we're gonna open that up in code. And we're going to do that by saying code components exercise. Okay, so just write code and then COMP and hit tab so it completes it for you. Whatever you called it. You just call it component. So you,
Oh, wait, no, 'cause that's,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, yeah, the folder name will be right here where it says CD.
Mm.
But we're gonna do code, so it'll open up in a new code editor.
I'm getting command
Yeah,
prompt
me
for
too.
code.
So dumb. In code, do Command Shift P and do install, and it should be shell command install code command in path.
Yeah.
So do that one. And then after you do that, type source ~/.zshrc.
I'm happy to have all this knowledge
Shell
right off the top
command.
of your
I
head.
know, he's something else.
It's cool.
He's a machine.
This is what
What's the word
happens.
for that when you eat cheese and don't have emotions?
And drink Dr. Pepper
And you
Zero.
drink Dr. Pepper Zero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sugar
Become
comes
a-
out.
You
You
got
become-
nothing but room for
You become
Yeah.
a Terminator.
Stupid information.
cheese may be good for some things, long-term memory as well.
Okay, so after you do that, then you can do hit up twice to your command code. If
Cool.
mine's like broken, but and then hit enter, and it should now open code.
Am I clicking when I do command C install the first option?
It should be shell command install code. I don't know why it keeps going away on all of your machines though.
Yeah, I know that.
That doesn't make
It's always
sense.
there three.
Yeah.
It's always there.
Yeah, and it's consistently like, oh, mine didn't work. It's weird.
On all three.
Yeah.
Three.
Yeah,
There are three.
yeah, it's like
That's on the table.
it's like it's not actually storing it in your.
Scientifically, it's that side of the table.
Challenges.
There's
What
only
the
one
challenge
exception.
is, they need more challenge to this.
It's like-
so good at everything else.
It's like your RC file
You guys
resets every
always sit on
time.
this side of the table?
Yes.
Explain.
Maybe we should switch sides.
It's probably a magnetic thing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The polarity of the earth.
Yes. Exactly. It goes right
We're
down
right on the
the
curve right here.
Yeah.
We're on this side of the curve.
All right, so if you open up your terminal in this now, you'll notice it's already get repository, right? And it already has a commit, so everything in here is already initially committed. Any changes you make will now dirty your repository. Okay, so what we're going to write is npm start. When you hit enters, it will run. It will say you're running front-end asset manager. It won't actually say that. Yours should just work. If you are running multiple React apps, this is what you'll see. And you can either go find that one and turn it off, or you can just hit yes and it'll run on a different port. But just know it'll end up running on a different spot. All right.
By the way, you're in the wrong window.
All right, so it should have opened your browser automatically, hopefully, and it should have the React logo spinning around. Okay, so we're gonna now follow these directions. So it says within the public folder, remove the following files. So we're gonna open up the public folder over here, and we wanna remove the favicon icon, the logo 192, the 512, the manifest, and the robot text. So the only thing that's remaining is the index HTML. So you can hold command and click all of those, right click and hit delete, and it will ask
So
you
all the whole public or just?
everything except for the index.
Oh, okay.
So you want to keep the public folder and the index HTML, but move the rest of it to trash.
How do you spell all this?
Hold command and then click the next one,
Oh, okay, so-
not index. You want to keep index.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so-
Well, click it. Hold command and then click.
okay.
You don't need to drag, just click on each one.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay, so I see what you're saying.
You have to hold command the whole time. And then if you hold command and hit delete, it will do the same thing.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Bam.
Here. Thanks, man.
Okay, so then it wants us to go into our index HTML and change it to look like this. So what we're going to do is we're just going to delete everything in index HTML. And we're going to write doc and hit tab. Oh wait, no, we're going to do HTML:5. Okay, and hit enter on that one, or select it, or whatever.
Seriously.
Index
Erase-
HTML,
Yeah, we're erasing that?
go in it,
Okay.
and then erase everything inside of it.
Gotcha.
And then do HTML:5, hit enters. Okay, and we can get rid of these two and just change the title to Ramping Up on React.
So we got rid of all the meta?
Yeah, except for the UTF-8.
Okay.
And then in the body, create a div with the ID of root, which is important because this is where React is going to attach itself. Then save that.
For an ID, it's, like, if you wanna do a quick thing, it's just.
Hashtag.
Hashtag.
Div hashtag root, and then hit tab. Okay, then we're gonna open up our source folder and we're going to delete some stuff out of there too. So app CSS, app test, logo SVG, report web vitals, and setup tests. Select all of those ones that I have selected and then hold command and hit delete, and it will pop up the little thing in Majogger and tell you you're about to delete all of this. So you'll be left with, oh no, hit Command Z.
Command Z. So I can just move, can I just move it to my trash or no?
Yes. Yeah, so you should be left with app.js, index.css, and index.js. Did it come back? Go into your, Git, or into your, yeah, go to that one. Right there. And that's done. Okay, open up your terminal. And we're gonna do Command Shift slash forward slash. Command Shift, I thought it was. So, click here so that it's definitely there. And Command Shift forward slash. Alright, that's that. Click that right there. Yep. Okay, so right here, we're gonna do git checkout source, src. Okay, let me go back up here. Took away your points like that too. Or did you not delete those? So you need to delete everything but index again. For some reason. You wanna keep index though, delete index. Don't hold shift to, command instead. Uh-huh. Okay, so you should have app.js, index.css, and index.js. We're going to open up app.js, and we're going to delete everything in it, and instead put import React from React. And then we're gonna put, I don't wanna write it that way, but I will anyway. Function app return h2 ramping up React. And then export default app. So export default will be what the default thing that we can import into another function or into another file. So this is, remember the module stuff? So same thing up here. So we're importing React from React. This is the default export in the React package. So in this file, our default export is the app, which is this function. So if somebody does an import and they give it a name and they reference our file, whatever they give that name, they're going to get our app function in its place. So it's good to always name it the same. So if we look in our index.js, it imports app from app, but we could name this whatever we want. It would still always be that default export in this case. So there's
App is a function, but React is a file? What is React?
React is a package.
Oh,
So, and React is also a function that we're getting from it. Okay. What?
Remember HTML that we did?
It was in the public folder?
I thought so. Can I erase it?
I don't know, did you erase
I
it?
don't see it. I don't know why I would erase that though. I just do it again. Create a new file.
Just go here. There it is right there. And click the little arrow backwards. And then if you go up to the files,
Right.
you should have it.
Oh, but see, that's the one I erased. Though.
Well, you just need to erase the contents.
And do it
Really,
again.
yeah.
Yeah, I just do it again. But I did this. That's what I'm saying. I did
Yeah.
this. Remember I inserted everything?
Yeah, somehow it got deleted. I wonder if it was still selected when you selected stuff in source and you used command to select.
Yeah. It could have been.
It would keep it selected and then it would have got deleted.
Do it again.
So,
I remember what you had me do, so I just do it again.
okay. Yeah, so that's what the default export is. The other option is a named export, so which we've also done. So if we were to say export function or export const or anything like that, that becomes a named export. So in this case, I can do app is both a named export in this case and a default export. And in index.js, I could import it as a named import, which just is destructuring it off of the import. So whenever you do a named import, it does matter what you call it because you're pulling it from. It's essentially giving you an object of exports, all on those keys or those names. Okay, but we'll just be using default exports in this case. And there's not like a right or wrong way to do this. It's more of a preference. In all of my apps, I use named exports as opposed to defaults, but it totally depends on your code base and
What else do we have there?
nothing.
What was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that's it. That's all React needs. Okay, so our index CSS, we're just gonna open and delete everything. Okay, we're not gonna add anything back, just the index CSS. And then we're gonna open our index.js and get rid of this line number 5, the report web vitals. And we're also going to get rid of lines 13 through 17.
So what was the first thing you got rid of at the top there? Which line?
Line 5,
Line 5, okay.
the report web vitals. So we're getting rid of, because we deleted that file, so we're just getting rid of all of the stuff about and then the comments at the
All the
bottom
comments at the bottom?
and the thing that where we call that function we just deleted.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
So, and ours will look a little bit different because we're using a newer version of React than when this was written, but it essentially does the same thing. So now React DOM has a create root function, and you pass it the root, and then on root you render, whereas before React DOM had a render function and you passed it the JSX as well as where you wanted it. So it's just slightly different syntax, but it does the exact same thing. Okay. So if you look at your stuff now, or your React app, it should just say ramping up on React on a white screen, right?
Yep.
No, I have a problem.
Well, that's my
Yours is brokens,
Yeah.
bad times.
different than your text. I have different font, different font in yours, sir.
Oh, wait, go back.
I have different font than CJ.
So your index.js, go in here and hit Command Z a lot. Okay, so you just want to delete this one.
Because it was,
Yeah, I was selecting all the rows,
Is it
and
saying
then lines
no?
13 through
that's why I
17.
wasn't looking.
And then go to your app.js. It's not rendering.
Yeah.
Go to your index.html. This needs to be ID. Instead of class. There you go.
Mine's not
Yep.
showing up either.
Okay. You don't want to open it with this live server.
Oh.
So you want to kill that. So what with React will never use live server.
Oh, okay.
Alright, so go back to your browser. And we're going to change this to localhost 3000. There you go. So it will automatically open up, and pretty much the whole time we use React will always be at localhost 3000.
Okay.
Bless.
Okay, so next what we're going to do is we're going to make some of our own components. So this exercise is really just to get everybody used to using React, okay? You don't always have to do all that stuff we just did. You'll delete some of those things, but maybe not all of them. But this kind of gets you to a more bare React install without anything else. Okay, so we're going to add a component named heading that renders an H2 element containing the text hello world. Okay, so in source, we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call it heading.js. Okay, notice heading is capitalized. With components, you always capitalize your own components. So our app one was capital app. Okay, it's not lowercase, but notice the H2 is lowercase. So anything that's a regular DOM node or a DOM element is going to be lowercase. Any of your custom ones are going to be uppercase. We're going to start with a capital letter. And that's how React knows this one is a custom component and this one is one that's built in. Because React always creates a component, but it knows to use the DOM component when it's lowercase and to use your component when it's uppercase. Okay, so what we're gonna do is import React from React, okay? And we're going to create a element that renders an H2 and has the text hello world. Okay, so just like in our app.js, I want you to do the same thing, but it's going to be called heading instead of app, and it's going to have the text hello world. So everybody try and do that in their heading.js file.
The function is gonna be called heading.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so create a function called heading and have it return an H2 with the text being hello world.
Do we have to export then?
Yep, then you would export default heading.
And then we go back to the next JS and
So you can go back to app.js. We're going to import heading from heading. Now notice when I import here, I'm going to use /heading to tell it that I'm using my own component. Okay? I don't do heading like that because then it would look in Node.js or in the NPM modules and Node modules. So I do / and I give it the path to heading. Okay? And then instead of ramping up on React, we're going to have it render our heading. Okay, and if you did your heading.js correct, you should see the the words "hello world" on the page after you do this. Got it? All right, so who wants to walk me through building my heading.js?
Once it get working,
Yeah. Charisse has volunteered already.
and it's not.
Christian's too slow.
It's twice today in episode that she's beaten up.
Family Feud, brother.
Now that we know Kamala is better at coding than AJ's.
It's true.
Yep, everything's
That's what I heard.
For return heading
Mm-hmm.
in the brackets, in the self-closing bracket, it's just the word capital H for heading.
Yeah, just like this one.
Why do I have squiggles?
Did you import it?
Import heading from heading. Oh, not in my app.
What?
I was just talking about it on here.
Me too.
He was asking to get punched in the face.
punch
Yeah.
me in the face.
But I know that you would do terribly at the game telephone.
Punch me in the face.
He did. I'm pretty sure he said that. He said, "Come on, and punch me in the face."
That'll wake me up
I'm so bored.
for the next 15 minutes.
I'm so bored that I need you to punch me in the face.
Tom's gonna punch me in the face.
He's the last one to be bored in this class.
The next 15
He's
minutes.
loving every second of this
A face punch is a great way to wake up.
punch face.
My kids taught me that
Yeah.
very, very early in their lives. Headbutts.
That sounded different from this one.
Yeah?
Yeah, and this morning I woke up thinking about it and it got me right
Freak
out
you
of
out,
bed.
yeah. Be like, yeah, that could be on me.
It's like, I'm gonna wake up right now.
Mm-hmm.
All right, ready?
No, it's
Oh,
not
okay.
working. And I don't know why.
You can help me write my heading.js, all right?
Oh, okay, it's working now.
Perfect.
Yay.
Help me write my heading JS.
Okay, so, heading JS, this function, heading with the capital H, parentheses, full block with curlies, returning H2 in brackets, hello world, closing H2, semicolon. And then we're gonna export default, capital H, heading, semicolon.
And
We go to app.js and import a heading from heading. I didn't do that one, so.
How did you open your tabs?
I have a plugin in Chrome called Vimium. Look it up.
Well,
All right. So, and now I see hello world. Nice work. All right. So now we're going to update heading to render the H2 element text using a prop. Okay. So we have talked a little bit about React. Does anybody remember what props are? Okay.
Taking something else and using it, taking something from elsewhere and using it.
Right. So like, so far, this is just JavaScript, right? Like you know how to write functions. We've done imports, we've done exports here and there. The only difference is we have this weird like HTML thing inside that we're returning. Okay. So all of your JavaScript or React components will do a bunch of JavaScript and then they will return some HTML. Okay. So knowing what we know about functions, functions can take parameters, right? And this function, any React component function takes one parameter called props. Okay, it's always there. In this case, we're not passing any props, so we're not receiving anything. Okay, but this will be an object. Okay, in app.js where we're rendering the heading, we pass the props by adding attributes. Okay, just like you do in HTML. So we're going to add an attribute, and it doesn't tell us what to call the value. So we'll just say text equals hello or React. I'll just do hello React so it changes, so it's different, right? Okay, so this is a prop. Looks like an attribute. In React world, this is called a prop. Okay, and it's a property that you're passing to your React component. It's the same as if we were to call heading and pass it text hello world or React or whatever. Okay, it's basically the same concept. All right. So in heading.js now, we are saying hello world. We want to get that text prop. So in here, anytime we want to render JavaScript within our JSX, we use curly braces. So this is kind of like the HTML template strings, right? But you don't need the $sign. Anytime it sees curly braces, it will say whatever's inside of this should be JavaScript. So it could be like 1 + 2, and this will say 3 inside of my heading now, okay? So what we want to do is we want to say props, and we know it's an object, and so it should have text on it because that's the property we're passing in. So if you save that, it should say hello React. Okay, now a common thing to do is, because props is an object, is just destructure it right there in the function. So rather than doing props and then props.text and props.whatever, props, if you're sending a bunch of props in, then you're writing props dot a lot. We can just say text in curly braces and get rid of props dot and destructure it right there. And it doesn't change. Okay, so there we've now created a prop on app.js, passing it as text, and in heading, accepting text. Okay, So let's go down, update the app component to render multiple heading components. Use the heading text prop to vary the text for each heading component. Okay, so in our return, we need to render multiples of these. Okay, now in React, this is an important thing to remember. You can only return one element. Okay, so when you need to return 3 headings, you either need to put those 3 headings inside of a containing div or a containing element of some sort, or React has a thing called fragments. Okay, so you could either do a fragment. Okay, so we could either do a div and then put our heading inside of that div, and now we can return multiple headings and it's fine. The other thing we can do is use a React fragment, and that just makes it so that we don't have this extra div all over our code because we needed something to wrap stuff in. Okay, so we can use the fragments in 2 ways. One, you can say react.fragment like that, and then obviously same thing in the bottom. Okay, or you can also just do an opening and closing like this, and just don't put anything in it, and the compiler will understand that that's a React fragment as well. Okay, so now if I was to say hello world, hello dev island, hello Rich, we missed you,
Unless you guys do. Just saying.
then we get all of those rendered. So, and you can do it either way. You can have the div, or you can have it's just cleaner not to have a bunch of extra HTML that you didn't need. So, and if we look at how this renders too, we have our root div that it's rendering inside of, and then it just has a bunch of H2s inside of it with the fragment. Okay, if I change that to a div, then I have this div inside, and then the H2s inside that. Okay, so it just makes it a little bit cleaner, not as much DOM tree, which eventually matters. So. Okay, so we just finished number 3 on those exercises. So let's just put a comment above function. We are on number 4. Okay, so if you get to this point in your reading before Thursday, then you know you're on number 4, and you can just start from there with this project. Okay, and it goes to 6, and then it has a few challenges. Okay, and after doing the readings, you should be able to do these. So I think most of you will probably finish this much. There's a couple readings before it, but not much. Most of it's review. So some of the React stuff will now be review because you've done a little bit. Okay. But we're on number 4 now, and we can continue there on Thursday. There was something else I was going to say, and it now escaped me. I was hoping Rich would remind me.
I totally remember. I just can't tell you right
Okay.
now. Thanks for the call.
Oh, I was going to ask.
Told you I know.
Thanks, Rich.
You're welcome.
I was going to ask, looking at our HTML like we just did, can anyone tell me why all of it's inside of that div? Go way back. How did React put it there?
Because you only have one div in your body.
Well, what if I add another one? What if I added like 12 divs?
Well, they're not under the empty root.
Okay. What does that mean?
What divs?
In the index JavaScript, it connects to the root. Like it says get element by ID.
Okay, so this is how it knows. Okay, so it's not just a magic React is looking for something called root. We tell it, here's the div I want you to attach to. Okay, so we say here's a root and we give it an element. So we've all written these, right? Recently, document.getElementById by ID root. Okay, we could have done it like const root equals not that, document.getElementById by ID root, and then passed. I don't know why I did capital root. Oh, because there's already one. Root element
What about group?
root. Okay, so React DOM has a create root function on it that we pass our root element that we want to tie to. Okay, you could do it either way. It's just a little easier to not have to have that extra constant, right? Okay, and then on the root we created from this React DOM create root, there's a render function now on that, because this returns an object, right, to root. It has this render function, and then we tell it on that root that we just created, render, this is React strict mode. We don't even have to have that. We could get rid of that. And we could just say render app, okay? And it would still work. React strict mode just adds some checking so that if you do something dumb, it'll be like, hey, you really shouldn't do that,
A validation check?
kind of. It's more of like a syntax check, and it'll also do best practice type checks to say like, that might work, but you really shouldn't do that, okay? So we'll leave React strict mode in there just so that we have that checking for us, but we can render whatever we want there. We could also get rid of app and just render like an H1 here. Okay, we can render anything that we could have rendered in React here. So go to sleep, Christian. Okay.
Almost, bro.
It doesn't help us very much to do that because now we've hard coded just one thing in,
And now Christian's asleep.
and now Christian's asleep. Okay, but does that make sense that this piece right here is just telling React, take this now and put it there, and then here's this other component that we created that also imports this other component that we created and has these. And if we look in that component, it does this, okay? So all this is we're taking little bits of HTML and putting it in different files. And each of these files are called components, and they make up a big page, okay? So next time we're going to, if you need help doing this component thing, we'll continue on this. But then we're going to create a little card like we created, like a profile card with Tailwind. And we're gonna bring up a design and say, how would we change this into components? Okay? So start looking at your different files that you've worked on, different apps that you've worked on. When you're on websites, think about, I wonder how this app has these components set, right? What things would make a component, what things would be a bigger component, which things are the page that get all the components and put them together. Okay? Cool. Any questions on what we did? Yes? Probably? Your readings will help.
The questions are just kind of like wanting to see how this is going to work out in the long run.
Yeah. How will I use this?
Yeah.
Yes.
Because right now, looking at it, it's like, why would I create another sheet to create this component to go back and
Yes.
Excellent question.
And then at some point you're gonna be like, I can't remember how to do JavaScript without React. Or you'll look at your JavaScript apps like the Capsule Hotel and be like, I can't believe I did that with that React. It was so
I
stupid.
had to write
It was so hard, I can't believe it.
functions.
Difficult.
Oh, I had to write my HTML somewhere else besides in my JavaScript. I'll tell you right now, I started doing React in like 2012 and I hated it. I thought it was so dumb to put HTML and JavaScript and I hated having it there. And now I'm like, I can't live without
I don't
it.
know if you,
I saw that.
I don't know if you, yeah, she's strong enough. I don't
Oh,
know
did you
if
get a new phone?
Well, no, yeah, I did. This is the young lady who stole my computer.
Oh, can I
So-
see
How
some?
dare she?
So just take.
You guys hang out now?
Yeah, we hang out.
You're like, you could have just asked him. I
Tell
would
her
let
other
you use
people's
it.
laptops to steal? I know a guy. He's got a way nicer laptop than me. He just got out of
The
the
guy who
army.
gave me this laptop has like 7 at his house. I can get you in.
Very, be careful.